Don't you ever come near her again, you hear me? Get out!
Get away from me! Please, stop this!
The message came through at 7:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that felt like any other Tuesday in our 15-year marriage. I was standing in my hardware store, counting register receipts, when my phone buzzed. Working late tonight. Staying at Jules's place. Don't wait up. M. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then let out a laugh that echoed through the empty aisles of Brasken hardware. Right. And I'm backstage at Cirque du Soleil. My wife Maren had been working late a lot recently. Her fitness club apparently demanded more evening hours than a hospital emergency room. But here's the thing about owning a hardware store in a town of 8,000 people. You hear things. Mrs. DeWitt, who lived next door to us, had mentioned seeing Maren's car at places that definitely weren't Jules's house. Places like the Ocean View apartments on Harbor Street. I typed back, "Perfect, I'm already having drinks with her." The response was immediate. "What?" "Jules, having drinks with Jules right now. She seems surprised you're coming over." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then nothing. I pocketed my phone and grinned. Sometimes the best revenge starts with the smallest lie. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Jules Morrison at the Lobster Trap, our town's only decent bar. Jules looked confused, nursing a wine spritzer and checking her phone every 30 seconds. "I don't understand," she said for the 3rd time. "Maren said she was working late at the club." "Funny thing about that," I said, taking a sip of my beer. "I drove by Ocean View Fitness an hour ago. Parking lot was empty except for the night janitor's truck." Jules's face went pale. She knew something, and her poker face was about as convincing as a $3 bill. "Look, Lennon," she started, but I held up my hand. "Let me save us both some time, Jules. My wife is having an affair. You know about it. The question is whether you want to be complicit in whatever comes next, or if you want to help me figure out exactly what's been going on." She stared at me like I just announced I was running for mayor. You're not going to do anything crazy, are you?" "Define crazy," I said, because from where I'm sitting, the crazy part already happened. I just want to level the playing field. My phone buzzed. Maren again. There must be some mistake. Jules isn't answering her phone. I showed Jules the message. "Want to call her back?" Jules shook her head slowly. "She's been different lately. Secretive, always on her phone, always making excuses to go out." "With who?" "There's this trainer at her club, Sawyer Pike. Young guy, maybe 28, thinks he's some kind of fitness guru. Maren's been talking about him constantly, his workout methods, his nutrition advice, his..." She trailed off. "His what?" "His body," Jules finished quietly. "She talks about his body a lot." I felt something cold settle in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "How long?" "I suspected for maybe 2 months, but Lennon, I never had proof, and I didn't want to. 2 months. I finished my beer and signaled the bartender for another. 2 months of late nights and lies and me cooking dinner for one." Jules reached across the table and touched my hand. "I'm sorry, I should have said something." "You're saying something now. That's what matters." My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call. Maren's name lit up the screen. "Answer it," I told Jules. "Put it on speaker." Jules hesitated, then accepted the call. "Hello?" "Jules, thank goodness. Lennon just texted me saying he's with you, but that doesn't make sense because I told him I was coming to your place tonight." "Actually, Maren," I said, leaning toward the phone, "it makes perfect sense. Because you're not coming to Jules's place tonight, are you? You're at Sawyer Pike's apartment." The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then, "Lennon, what are you doing with Jules?" "Having drinks, talking, learning interesting things about my wife's evening activities." I kept my voice conversational, almost friendly. "The question is, what are you doing with your personal trainer?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. Ocean View Apartments, Unit 4B, silver Honda Civic in the parking lot, license plate that starts with HGF. Should I keep going?" Another long silence. Then the line went quiet. Jules stared at me. "How did you know all that?" "Mrs. DeWitt has been keeping me informed. Turns out our neighbor is better than the FBI when it comes to surveillance." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the photos Mrs. DeWitt had sent me over the past week. Maren's car in the Ocean View parking lot. Maren and a tall, muscular guy with perfectly styled hair walking into the building. Maren and the same guy having lunch at a restaurant 2 towns over. "Jesus," Jules whispered, looking at the photos. "She really is having an affair." "Was," I corrected. Past tense, because as of right now, Maren's affair just became public knowledge. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I opened my laptop, I'd brought it from the store, and logged into our joint bank account. With a few keystrokes, I transferred most of our savings to a separate account I'd opened that morning. Not all of it, nothing illegal, just enough to make sure Maren couldn't clean me out while I figured out my next move. Then I did something that felt both petty and deeply satisfying. I canceled her credit cards. "Lennon," Jules said nervously, "what are you doing?" "Evening the odds. Maren wants to play games? Fine, but she's going to play by my rules now." My phone rang again. Maren, predictably. "You canceled my cards?" she said the moment I answered. "I secured our joint assets," I replied. Seemed like the responsible thing to do, given the circumstances. "What circumstances?" "The circumstances where my wife is screwing her personal trainer and lying to me about it. I'm not... Maren." My voice went hard. "I have photos, I have witness statements, I have a timeline going back 2 months. The only thing I don't have is patience for your lies." She was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, colder. "What do you want? Right now? I want you to come home. We're going to have a conversation." "I can't. My car won't start." I almost laughed. "Let me guess. Your boyfriend's car isn't available either?" "Lennon, please. Can we just talk about this tomorrow?" "No," I said. "We're talking about it tonight. Walk home if you have to. You've got legs." I hung up and looked at Jules, who was staring at me with something between admiration and terror. "You're really doing this," she said. "I'm just getting started." The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to a gym, not Maren's precious Ocean View Fitness, but the older, grittier Ironworks gym across town where Sawyer Pike apparently worked part-time. I'd done my research, 28 years old, originally from Boston, moved to our little Maine town 6 months ago, posted constantly on social media about fitness, nutrition, and living your best life. The kind of guy who took selfies at the gym and used hashtags like Zar, Beast Mode, and Kcharn, Grind Never Stops. The kind of guy who apparently thought screwing another man's wife was just another form of exercise. I walked into Ironworks at 6 a.m. when I knew Sawyer would be there for his morning shift. The place smelled like sweat and rubber mats, all clanging weights and motivational posters. I approached the front desk where a tired-looking teenager was reading a fitness magazine. "I'd like to book a session with Sawyer Pike," I said. The kid looked up. "Personal training?" "That's right. Name's Larry Brennan." I'd used a fake name, paid in cash. No point making this easy to trace back to me. "Sawyer's got an opening at 7. That work?" "Perfect." I spent the next hour pretending to use various machines while watching Sawyer work with his clients. He was exactly what I'd expected. Tall, lean, muscular, with the kind of artificial confidence that comes from spending too much time looking in mirrors. He laughed too loud, flexed unnecessarily, and called everyone champ or warrior. At 7 sharp, he approached me with a blindingly white smile. "Larry, right? I'm Sawyer. Ready to transform your life?" "Something like that," I said. For the next 45 minutes, Sawyer put me through a workout that was clearly designed to show off his own knowledge rather than actually help me. He demonstrated every exercise himself, made sure I noticed his form, his strength, his technique. He was performing, not teaching. "So, what's your fitness background, Larry?" he asked as I struggled through a set of bench presses. "I run a hardware store," I said between reps. "A lot of heavy lifting, but nothing structured." "Hardware store? Nice. I bet you know how to work with your hands." "You could say that." "That's cool, man. I'm all about functional fitness, real-world strength, you know? Not like these gym rats who look good but can't actually do anything useful." I sat up from the bench and looked at him directly. "Speaking of useful skills, I hear you're good at more than just fitness training." Something flickered in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "I hear you're also good at relationship counseling, helping married women work through their problems." The smile faltered. "I'm not sure what you're getting at, champ." "I'm getting at my wife, Lennon Brasken. Maybe you know her." The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might pass out. He took a step back, glanced around the gym like he was looking for an exit. "I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding," he said. "No misunderstanding. You've been sleeping with my wife for 2 months. The only question is what we're going to do about it." Sawyer's jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he might try to run or throw a punch. Instead, he stepped closer, trying to use his height advantage to intimidate me. "Look, man, I don't know what you think you know, but I know you live in Unit 4B at Ocean View Apartments. I know you drive a black Mustang with a dent in the rear bumper. I know you and my wife had lunch at Coastal Catch last Tuesday, and I know she spent 3 hours at your place last Thursday night. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. How do you? Small town, Sawyer. People notice things. People talk. Okay, look. He held up his hands. Maybe Maren and I have been friendly, but that doesn't mean anything serious happened. I stood up from the bench, which put us at roughly the same height. Friendly, that's what you call it? It's complicated, okay? She said she was having problems at home, said you two were basically separated. Did she now? She said the marriage was over, that you were just going through the motions until she could figure out the legal stuff. I nodded slowly. And you believed her. Why wouldn't I? She seemed genuinely unhappy. Unhappy enough to lie to both of us, apparently. Sawyer's confidence was cracking. He kept glancing around the gym, but it was early enough that we were mostly alone except for a few serious lifters who had their headphones on and weren't paying attention to us. What do you want? He asked finally. I want you to understand something, I said quietly. Maren played both of us. She told me she was working late, told you I was basically out of the picture. But here's the thing. I'm very much in the picture, and I don't appreciate being lied to. Look, if I had known, you would have what? Not slept with another man's wife? He didn't have an answer for that. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to end whatever this thing is with Maren. You're going to stop taking her calls, stop seeing her, stop giving her relationship advice, or whatever you want to call it. And if I find out you've had any contact with her after today, we're going to have another conversation, one that won't be nearly as pleasant as this one. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining the situation. There's a difference. Sawyer tried to puff out his chest, tried to reclaim some of his earlier bravado. You can't tell me who I can and can't see. You're right. I can't. But I can make your life very uncomfortable if you choose to keep seeing my wife. How? I smiled. Small town, remember? People talk. And right now, the people who matter, gym owners, potential clients, the fitness community, they don't know you're the kind of guy who sleeps with married women. But that could change very quickly. His face went pale again. You wouldn't. Try me. We stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Sawyer looked away. Fine, he muttered. Whatever. It wasn't that serious anyway. I'm sure it wasn't. For you. I gathered my things and headed toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Sawyer, you might want to check your car before you drive home today. What's that supposed to mean? Small town, I said again. People notice things. I left him standing there, looking confused and worried. Outside in the parking lot, I walked over to his black Mustang and admired the work my friend Jerry had done while I was inside. Nothing permanent, nothing that would cause an accident. Just 4 flat tires and a windshield covered in honey that would take hours to clean off. Jerry emerged from behind a pickup truck, grinning and wiping his hands on a rag. How'd it go in there? He asked. About as well as expected. He's not as tough as he pretends to be. They never are. Want to grab breakfast and watch him discover his car situation? Tempting, but I've got a hardware store to run. Besides, I think Sawyer's going to be busy for a while. As I drove away, I saw Sawyer emerge from the gym and freeze when he saw his car. Even from a distance, I could hear him swearing. Phase 2 of my plan was complete. Now it was time for Phase 3. 3 days passed before Maren tried to contact me directly. She'd been staying at Jules's place, actually staying there this time, according to Mrs. DeWitt's intelligence network. But on Friday evening, she finally came home. I was in my workshop behind the hardware store organizing inventory when I heard her car in the driveway. Through the window, I watched her get out and walk toward the house with the careful steps of someone approaching a dangerous animal. I gave her 10 minutes to settle in, then walked across the yard to our back door. I found her in the kitchen, making coffee with shaking hands. Hello, Maren? She turned around, and I was struck by how different she looked. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, she wasn't wearing makeup, and her clothes looked like she'd slept in them. The confident, put-together woman I'd married had been replaced by someone who looked genuinely frightened. Lennon, she said quietly, we need to talk. I agree. Sit down. She sat at our kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten breakfast together for 15 years, where we'd planned vacations and discussed our days and made decisions about our life together. Now it felt like a negotiating table between enemies. I know you're angry, she began. Angry doesn't begin to cover it. I never meant for this to happen. Which part? The affair or getting caught? She flinched. The affair. I never meant to have an affair. But you did have one. Yes. For 2 months. Yes. While lying to me every single day. Yes. Her voice was barely a whisper. I sat down across from her and studied her face. Why? I don't know. That's not an answer, Maren. Try again. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, harder. Because I was bored, okay? Because we've been going through the motions for years, and I felt like I was disappearing. Because Sawyer made me feel attractive and interesting and alive. And I didn't. Not lately, no. The honesty stung, but I kept my expression neutral. So, instead of talking to me about it, you decided to solve the problem by sleeping with your trainer. It wasn't supposed to go that far. But it did. Yes. And you were planning to keep lying to me indefinitely. She looked up at me then, and I saw something in her eyes I didn't recognize, something calculating. I was planning to ask for a divorce, she said. When? Soon. I just needed to figure out the logistics. The logistics. The house, the business, the finances. I wanted to make sure I could support myself. I almost laughed. You mean you wanted to make sure you could take half of everything I've built? It's not just what you've built, Lennon. I've been part of this marriage, too. Right up until you decided to be part of someone else's bed. Her face flushed. That's not fair. Fair? I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the life we'd built together. You want to talk about fair? Let me tell you what's not fair. What's not fair is 15 years of marriage thrown away because you were bored. What's not fair is me cooking dinner for one while you were playing house with a 28-year-old. What's not fair is finding out from the neighbor that my wife is a liar and a cheat. I know I hurt you. You destroyed me. I turned back to face her. But here's the thing, Maren. I'm not destroyed anymore. I'm just getting started. Something in my tone must have alarmed her because she sat up straighter. What does that mean? It means your boyfriend has already learned what happens when you mess with my life, and now it's your turn. Lennon, please, can't we handle this like adults? Adults don't sneak around behind their spouse's back for 2 months. I made a mistake. You made a choice. Every day for 2 months, you made the choice to lie to me. Every time you said you were working late, every time you said you were with Jules, every time you came home and kissed me goodnight knowing you'd been with him, those were all choices. She was crying now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no desire to comfort her. Just a cold, focused anger that had been building for days. What do you want me to do? She asked. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. What kind of consequences? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Jerry. They're at the marina, Pier 7. Thought you should know. I looked at Maren, who was still crying into her hands, and made a decision. Get in the car, I said. What? Get in the car. We're going for a drive. Lennon, I don't think... We're going to the marina. You and I and Sawyer are going to have a conversation. Her face went white. How do you know he's at the marina? Small town, remember? The drive to the marina took 15 minutes. 15 minutes of tense silence, broken only by Maren's occasional sniffles. I parked near the entrance and turned off the engine. He's here, isn't he? I said. You were supposed to meet him. She nodded miserably. Even after I told you we needed to talk. Even after you said you wanted to handle this like adults. You were still planning to sneak around. I wanted to tell him it was over. Sure you did. We walked down to the docks, past the fishing boats and pleasure craft, until we reached Pier 7. There, sitting on a bench overlooking the water, was Sawyer Pike. He looked up as we approached, and his expression went from confusion to alarm in about 2 seconds. Maren, what's going on? Hello again, Sawyer, I said pleasantly. Nice evening for a chat by the water. He stood up quickly, looked between Maren and me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. I think I should go. No, stay, please. I think the 3 of us need to clear the air. Lennon, Maren said quietly, let's just go home. We will, after we finish our conversation. Sawyer took a step back. Look, man, I already told you it was over between Maren and me. Did you? Because my wife seems to think she was meeting you here to end things herself, which suggests things weren't actually over. It's complicated. No, it's really not. It's actually very simple. You've been sleeping with my wife. My wife has been lying to me. And now we're all going to discuss how to move forward. The sun was setting behind us, casting long shadows across the water. A few other people were scattered around the marina, but we were relatively isolated on this particular pier. What do you want? Sawyer asked. I want honesty, from both of you. starting with how long this has really been going on? Maren and Sawyer exchanged glances. 2 months, Maren said quietly. Try again. Another glance. Sawyer shifted uncomfortably. 3 months, he said finally. Better. And how many times? Lennon, please, Maren said. What's the point of this? The point is that I deserve to know what my marriage actually was while I thought it was something else. I don't have to listen to this, Sawyer said, starting to walk away. Actually, you do. I moved to block his path. Because if you walk away now, tomorrow morning everyone in this town is going to know exactly what kind of man you are. He stopped. You're threatening me again. I'm explaining consequences. There's a difference. We stood there in a triangle, the 3 points of a relationship that had imploded. Finally, Maren spoke. It started 4 months ago, she said quietly. At the gym. He was helping me with my workout routine, and we started talking. Just talking at first. About what? Everything. My job, my life, my marriage. She looked at me with something that might have been regret. I told him I felt trapped. Trapped. In our routine, in our life. I felt like I was just going through the motions. So you decided to go through different motions with him. Sawyer cleared his throat. She said you two were having problems. We weren't having problems, I said. We were having a marriage, which apparently Maren found boring. It wasn't about you, Maren said. It was about me. About how I felt. And how did you feel? Invisible. Like I didn't matter anymore. I stared at her, this woman I'd shared my life with for 15 years, and realized I was looking at a stranger. So you decided to matter to someone else. I didn't plan it. It just happened. 4 months of just happening. Yes, I turned to Sawyer. And you? What's your excuse? He shrugged, trying to look casual, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. She's an attractive woman. She seemed unhappy. I thought I was helping. Helping. Making her feel better about herself. By sleeping with her. By showing her she was still desirable. I almost laughed. How noble of you. Look, I know how this looks, but it wasn't just about the physical stuff. We connected. We talked about things. What kind of things? Another glance between them. Maren answered. Our future, she said quietly. Your future. Together. The word hit me like a physical blow. Not just an affair, then. Not just boredom or a midlife crisis. They'd been planning a life together. How long? I asked. How long what? How long were you going to keep lying to me while you planned your future with him? Maren's face crumpled. I don't know. I was scared to tell you. Scared of what? Scared of hurting you. Scared of what you'd do. What I'd do. You can be intimidating when you're angry, Lennon. I looked at her, then at Sawyer, then back at her. You think I'm intimidating now? You haven't seen anything yet. What's that supposed to mean? Sawyer asked. I smiled, and apparently it wasn't a pleasant smile because both of them took a step back. It means this conversation is over, but the consequences are just beginning. I turned and walked away, leaving them standing on the pier together. As I reached my car, I heard Maren calling my name, but I didn't turn around. Phase 3 was complete. Time for the finale. I spent the weekend planning. Not just the immediate confrontation, but the long-term strategy. Maren wanted a divorce? Fine. But she was going to get the divorce I chose to give her, not the one she'd been planning. Monday morning, I opened Brasken Hardware as usual, but I had help. Jerry was there, along with Mrs. DeWitt and her grandson Tommy, who worked part-time at the Marina restaurant. Even Jules showed up, looking nervous but determined. You sure about this? Jerry asked as we set up folding chairs in the main aisle of the store. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. At exactly 6 p.m., I sent identical text messages to 30 people. Maren's coworkers, her gym friends, neighbors, local business owners, and anyone else who might be interested in the evening's entertainment. Special presentation at Brasken Hardware tonight at 7 p.m. Come learn the truth about marriage, loyalty, and consequences. Refreshments provided. Then I sent a different message to Maren and Sawyer. Store meeting tonight at 7. Come alone or together, your choice. But come. By 6:45, my hardware store looked like a town hall meeting. People were curious, confused, but definitely interested. Mrs. DeWitt had brought cookies. Jerry was serving coffee from a large thermos. The atmosphere was almost festive. At exactly 7 o'clock, Maren walked through the front door. She stopped when she saw the crowd, her face going pale. What is this? She asked. Community outreach, I said. Have a seat. Sawyer appeared a few minutes later, took one look at the assembled crowd, and tried to back out. But Jerry was standing by the door, and Jerry was a big man with big opinions about cheaters. "Come on in, champ," Jerry said loudly. "Party's just getting started." I stood at the front of the store, next to a display of paint cans, and looked out at the faces of people who'd known me for years. Good people, mostly. People who believed in fairness and loyalty and doing the right thing. "Thank you all for coming," I began. "I know this is unusual, but I wanted to share something with you, a story about trust and betrayal and what happens when people think they can lie without consequences." Maren was sitting in the front row, looking like she wanted to disappear. Sawyer was standing near the back, shifting from foot to foot. 4 months ago, I continued, my wife started having an affair with her personal trainer. For 4 months, she lied to me every day. Told me she was working late, told me she was with friends, told me she loved me while she was planning a future with another man. A murmur went through the crowd. Several people turned to look at Maren, who was staring at her hands. Now, some of you might think this is a private matter, family business that shouldn't be aired in public, and you'd be right. Except for one thing, my wife and her boyfriend weren't content to just lie to me. They were planning to take me for everything I'm worth. I pulled out a folder and opened it. See, I did some investigating. Found out some interesting things about their plans. Sawyer started moving toward the door, but Jerry stepped in front of him again. "Stay for the whole show, champ. You're one of the stars." I continued reading from the folder. Text messages discussing how to maximize Maren's divorce settlement, conversations about selling the hardware store and splitting the proceeds, plans to claim emotional distress and get additional compensation. The murmur from the crowd got louder. These were people who'd supported my business for years, who knew how hard I'd worked to build it. "But here's my favorite part," I said, pulling out another document. "Turns out Sawyer here isn't just a personal trainer and homewrecker. He's also got quite a history." Sawyer's face went white. "You can't what? Tell the truth? See, I did some checking with his previous employers in Boston. Turns out this isn't his first affair with a married client. In fact, it's his specialty. He targets unhappy wives, convinces them their marriages are over, helps them plan their divorces, and takes a cut of the settlement." The crowd was getting restless now. Angry murmurs, people standing up to get a better look at Sawyer. 3 previous cases, I continued. 3 married women, 3 divorces, 3 substantial settlements that Sawyer helped negotiate in exchange for a percentage. "That's not true," Sawyer said, but his voice was shaking. "Really? Because I have documentation from all 3 cases. Court records, financial statements, even testimony from one of the husbands who figured out what was happening." I looked directly at Maren, who was now crying openly. "So, you see, my dear wife, you weren't special. You weren't the love of his life. You were just another mark." Jules, who'd been sitting quietly in the middle of the crowd, suddenly stood up. "I have something to say," she announced. Everyone turned to look at her. Maren's head snapped up, hope flickering in her eyes. "I've been Maren's friend for 8 years," Jules said, "and I've watched her lie and manipulate and use people the entire time. She borrowed money from me and never paid it back. She spread rumors about other women to make herself look better. She even tried to seduce my boyfriend 2 years ago." Maren's mouth fell open. "Jules, what are you doing?" "What I should have done years ago. Telling the truth." Jules looked around the room. "Lennon is a good man. He didn't deserve any of this. And honestly, I'm tired of pretending to be friends with someone who treats people like garbage." The crowd was fully engaged now. People talking among themselves, shaking their heads, looking at Maren and Sawyer with undisguised disgust. I held up my hand for quiet. "There's one more thing. The best part, really." I pulled out a final document. "This morning, I filed a formal complaint with the state licensing board about Sawyer's business practices. Turns out what he's been doing, targeting married women for financial gain, violates several professional conduct standards. His personal training certification is under review." Sawyer finally found his voice. "You can't prove any of this." "Actually, I can, because Maren kept everything. Every text message, every email, every plan you two made. She saved it all on her phone, which she left at home yesterday when she went to meet you at the marina." I held up Maren's phone, which I'd found charging on her nightstand that morning. Amazing what people will put in writing when they think they're being clever. Maren lunged for the phone, but I stepped back. "It's all backed up anyway. Cloud storage is a wonderful thing." The crowd was getting louder now, people standing up, pointing at Maren and Sawyer, expressing their opinions in terms that weren't particularly flattering. "So, here's what's going to happen," I said, raising my voice to be heard over the noise. "Maren, you want a divorce? You've got one, but you're getting exactly what you deserve, which is nothing. No alimony, no property settlement, no share of the business. Just whatever you can carry in a suitcase. You can't do that, she said desperately. Actually, I can. Adultery is still grounds for divorce in Maine, and it affects asset distribution, especially when there's evidence of conspiracy to defraud. I turned to Sawyer. And you're going to leave town. Tonight. Because if I see you anywhere near my wife, my business, or my community again, I'm going to make sure everyone you meet for the rest of your life knows exactly what kind of man you are. Sawyer tried one last time to salvage the situation. You people don't understand. Maren was unhappy. Her marriage was already over. You were just a predator, Mrs. DeWitt interrupted, standing up with surprising vigor for a 70-year-old woman. And we don't tolerate predators in this town. A chorus of agreement rose from the crowd. People were standing now, moving closer to Sawyer, their faces showing exactly what they thought of him. Sawyer looked around desperately, realized he was outnumbered and outmaneuvered, and headed for the door. Jerry stepped aside to let him pass. Remember, I called after him. Tonight. The door slammed behind him, and the crowd turned its attention back to Maren, who was still sitting in her chair, looking completely defeated. As for you, I said to her, you have until tomorrow morning to get your things and get out of my house. She looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. Lennon, please, can't we talk about this privately? We had 15 years to talk privately. You chose to spend the last 4 months talking to someone else. She stood up slowly, looked around at the faces of people who'd been her neighbors and acquaintances, people who now knew exactly what she'd done. I never meant for any of this to happen, she said quietly. Yes, you did. You meant for all of it to happen. You just didn't mean to get caught. She walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. What am I supposed to do now? I looked at her, this woman who'd shared my bed and my life and my dreams, who'd thrown it all away for a con man with good abs and a charming smile. I honestly don't care, I said. She left, and the crowd began to disperse. People came up to shake my hand, to pat my back, to tell me I'd done the right thing. Mrs. DeWitt hugged me and promised to keep an eye on the house. Jerry helped me clean up the folding chairs. Jules was the last to leave. Thank you, I said to her. Thank you for giving me the chance to finally tell the truth about her. Why now? Why not years ago? Because years ago you seemed happy. I didn't want to interfere with that. But when I saw what she was doing to you, what they were planning, she shrugged. Some things are more important than friendship. After everyone left, I stood alone in my hardware store, surrounded by the familiar smells of wood and metal and honest work. Tomorrow, I'd start rebuilding my life. I'd file the divorce papers, change the locks, maybe take that fishing trip to Alaska I'd been putting off for years. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. I turned off the lights and locked the door. Outside, the Maine evening was cool and clear, full of possibilities. Behind me, my phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, I thought it might be Maren trying one last manipulation. Instead, it was from a number I didn't recognize. Saw what happened tonight. Good for you. Some people deserve exactly what they get. I deleted the message and walked to my truck. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, new consequences for everyone involved. But tonight, I was the one walking away with my dignity intact. Tonight, I was the monster who'd won.